Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's the Mac, and welcome back to a brand new spanking showcase let's play of the Mexican-American War from Wargame Design Studio. I don't believe I have ever showcased any game from this particular series from the Wargame Design Studio's catalog. So this will be a learning experience for me, and I want to share with you guys since my knowledge in these games are fairly limited, and it's also covering theaters of war, which I know not that much about. But this whole I've been playing around with this game, of course, a bit off camera, and there is quite a lot of differences in the way of strategic and tactical thinking, and also mechanics in this sort of very sort of small scale compared to the other series of the franchise. So right off the bat, we are going to check out the site. So this falls under the early American wars. They have a few titles here. These are fairly old titles that have been around way back from John Tiller days. They haven't. The only thing they have released is this here, Little Big Horn, and that is the free demo for this series. And I haven't actually showcased this. But I will showcase the Mexican-American War instead. So this is early American wars, cover many different campaigns from the French and Indian War to the Mexican-American War. The game scale is 125 feet a hex. That's about 40 meters a hex in a metric system. And only 5-minute turns, man. So very sort of fast-moving fights and action going on at 40-meter hexes. And units are normally at company level. So, yeah, so this game here, man, very interesting. I actually had a look at this game for quite a while ago, and I decided not to buy it. But then, as many of you know, a couple of weeks ago, this was actually on sale. So I thought, what the heck, man? I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to start learning this particular branch, this series, in the Wargame Design Studio catalog there. So it's a very interesting conflict. It only lasted for like 2 years, but I like the scale and the sort of scope of it, and got me really intrigued to dive into some of the other series as well. So here the explanation is: march across the plains of the southern Texas with the 4th U.S. Infantry, which included in its ranks the young Lieutenant Sam Grant, a company of the elite U.S. engineers. Its members including Lee, Beauregard, McClellan, Joe Johnston, and others soon-to-be famous officers, as they pry into the Mexican dispositions to find an opening that would lead to victory. Bounce across the arroyos at Buena Vista, on the seat of Quezon in a battery commanded by Captain Braxton Bragg, or ride with the U.S. Dragoons alongside Dick Ewell, back in the days when he still had hair and both legs. Mexican-American War is a tactical level simulation of this conflict using the early American Wars engine. Yeah, so not for American audiences, for people from the U.S., this will be sort of what we know about European history. This is the American history for sure, and definitely the Mexican-American sort of standing, and of course the forming of Texas and the sort of the southwestern Americas as we know it today, how it was actually came about. So very interesting. So as I said, my knowledge is quite limited, and I will probably make a lot of mistakes. For many of my American viewers will probably laugh at me for not really knowing this stuff, but I'm doing my best. I'm going to get into it. So this is what it is. There's quite a few battles included here. Uh, there were a few major clashes, but also there's a lot of hypothetical studies and scenarios. So we're going to be going into the notes, the Almighty Notes. So the Almighty Notes is only 12 pages, but it gives you a kind of a good summarization of what this game is all about. So, so goes on here. So basically, in the 1840s, when the sort of northeast or eastern bloc of the North America was sort of forming into a nation, so to speak, and they were. And the Mexico was quite big at the time. I don't know if I have a map. There are some maps that comes with the game, but the sort of eastern Mexico was kind of had just gained its independence in the 1820s from Spanish rule, and it was sort of a nation in turmoil, and there was differences in religion, there was differences in sort of governing ships, and it was sort of not really a very young nation and a very sort of chaotic, and so was basically the U.S. at the time. It was also sort of a young, expanding nation, and they wanted to go westwards to exploit the vast areas of the western United States, all the way down to California and all that. And they were encouraging people to travel west and to settle down and build the land and work the land basically. And so Texas had been part of Mexico, and they sort of were fighting for their independence. The Texas War of Independence fought between 35 and 36. So that's actually included in this game as well, how they fought for their independence. And then there was a border dispute. This is kind of a controversial, as I read in history, about what actually went down. There are different sides of the story, but some texts or videos I've been watching that was sort of a staged attack, or they used this the Mexican army skirmish as a means to sort of invade and capture Mexico and subdue the Mexican army. And they sent these surveillance parties over to survey the land, but actually they were like armed men and soldiers there to sort of do reconnaissance and things like that. So it was very much going on basically. To the north, many American demands border with land. Yeah, so there was latitudes, different border disputes. So Texas was annexed by the United States in 1945. The problem with that was that the Mexican government had never recognized independence of Texas. So Santa Anna, as president of Mexico, had pledged Texas independence after being captured at San Jacinto. Essentially, Santa Anna had traded. So this Santa Anna dude, he's kind of a famous character. He actually went in exile as well, and in Cuba, I think, or something. As there was a new government in Mexico, and the Mexico was sort of under threat from the American invasion, he was sort of called back. But he made a promise not to seize power, because he was apparently here's then there is this aforementioned mystery wrapped within the Mexican enigma, the infamous Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. Santa Anna became president of Mexico in 1833 and was hold the office 10 more times over a period of 22 years. Americans remember him only as the cruel foe of the defenders of the Alamo, but he was a complicated individual with his flaws outnumbering his talents. Vain, ambitious, selfish, scheming, all those traits applied, but he was also an inspiring leader and a great organizer. Yeah, so he sort of was, I think I read somewhere that he was like pro-Spanish rule, for the Spanish to stay there. But then he switched side and wanted to overthrow the Spanish, and then he went sort of, and he changed his stance again, and he was sort of something else, and then he was something else, and then was something else. I mean, he was a man of his time, I guess. He was swinging around different kind of alliances and trying to make his way about the political schemes. I would imagine, So those armies might have been miserably fed or poorly trained, but they were a massively and colorful and awe-inspiring sight at the beginning of the battle, which they usually lost. Okay, so Santa Anna went to exile in Cuba when the first shots were fired at Palo Alto. But through intermediaries, he was able to lead the U.S. government to believe that he would just be able to get back to Mexico. He could amicably straighten out this Texas and California business for monetary consideration, of course. And the outset was that he was allowed to pass through the U.S. blockade. Once back in Mexico, he reversed himself and proclaimed to his people that he would be their savior. The Napoleon of the West would thrash the arrogant Americans and recover the fortunes of Mexico. To understand Mexico, one must first understand Santa Anna, and for the United States, neither was possible. So California was a remote region in the 40s, far removed from Mexico City. It has enjoyed relative autonomy even before American immigrants flooded it and started agitating for independence. The war in California consisted of a series of small-scale actions in which fortunes of the combatants swayed back and forth. Okay. The war tested the courage and self-reliance of leaders as well as witnesses. The epic 2,000-mile march of Stephen Kearny's tiny army. Yeah, so there was this army that went in there. 2,000-mile march, man, from 11th of Kansas to Santa Fe and then on to California. Or Alexander's arduous trek from Santa Fe to Parras, Mexico. Battles fought by a handful of soldiers determined the fortunes of vast regions, decisive far beyond the scope of the combats. So at Monterrey, after a 3-day battle, the Mexican army was permitted to withdraw without molestation by the Americans. The Mexicans still held the city and the formidable Black Fort, but there was an indignation of Americans not to go for the throat and the Mexicans not to offer it. So, and then, so the battle, then there is like big incursions and there's campaigns actually. There's U.S. forces going in, and there was that one we just read about, the 2,000-mile trek. And then there was another one that was sort of fighting in Texas. And then they sent the Third Army to go and actually occupy Mexico City. And there were some major battles going on down there as well. So there's some designer notes. These are, you could tell they're pretty old. This is the fourth game from the APS, with 2 of the 3 being. So this is like really early game, in the beginnings of the John Tiller software and HPS. So they're going about that. So the cool thing is there's actually a couple of campaigns that comes with this game. So there's up to 5 different campaign files to play in this. So there's Taylor's campaign. The file covers all the actions that took place under Taylor's command, running from Palo Alto through Buena Vista. Depending on the selection players make, this campaign could potentially cover 7 linked battles, or as few as 3. Losses carry over between actions where appropriate. They have Scott's campaign. The file covers the late part of the war, picking up Scott's landing near Veracruz and carrying all the way to gates of Mexico City. The first segment of the campaign covers Ciudad Gordo and potential actions that could have happened based on the outcomes of choices made by the commanders. Historically, the armies broke off contact after this, with Mexicans going off to lick their wounds and Americans being forced to regroup as many of the volunteers enlisted expired and new troops were brought up. They have a full war campaign. This is a flat campaign in that it simply links all the major battles of the war together, one after the other. No losses carry over in any action regardless of outcome. There will be a total of 9 battles fought. This doesn't give the true campaign experience, but it is a good way to fight all the major historical battles in a row if you want to do that. So that's pretty cool. They have the Alamo campaign. This is for the Texas War of Independence. This simply provides you a choice of how the battles will be fought with 2 choices for each player. And they have the Texas War of Independence Texas campaign. This campaign is similar to the full war one, with it providing a series of linked battles with no losses carrying over between the actions. So, in some cases, in both Taylor and Scott's campaigns, you may have this situation where the results of the two choices do not result in the battle. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And then they have all the scenarios. And they have some of this engine changes. As I mentioned in my opening comments, it's been quite some time since the early American War series has had an engine update. According to variety of things have been done to give this engine a boost, adding more flexibility for custom designers to make scenarios with. Yeah, so this game hasn't been given a lot of love, but it's probably on the list. You know, they're going to be upgrading this game, probably as they're doing with all their games, but they might not have prioritized. I think this series is sort of, it might be sort of the least popular of many of the series they have. So you will notice as we play this game and look into it, it looks kind of old compared to what they've done to all the other titles now. You know, updated the toolbars and stuff. Graphics looks pretty good though. There are some stuff that, you know, we're going to be seeing that. There's different sound effects and stuff, and some sound effects actually are not there at all. So it's, you know, it's they're going to be upgrading this, you know. So they have some engine changes, and these are all, you know, stuff. We don't have to go through that. And they have the weapons used is also something quite new to me. So they have all these old kinds, like whole rifle, miss rifle, whole carbines, pistols and shotguns, 18-pounders, 4-pounders, you know, different brown Bess, pike's hand, musket with, or probably without bayonet, I would imagine. With or without bayonet. Lance pistols, Harper's musket, Baker rifle, escopeta. So different kind of guns, man. And then, as you can see, it's pretty old. It's 2008 here. So they and then there's a different article about the Texas War of Independence, and sort of talks about it here, and yeah. So it's the designer notes, man. Give you a good sorry about that overview of what the game has to offer, basically. So what else? Yeah, so they have different PDFs that comes with it. So they have these operations. No, sorry, that was yeah, they have the campaign maps and stuff. So they have the Texas War of Independence, where these different battles took place. They have Taylor's campaign as he was coming in here. They have those battles, and they have the landing of Scott's army as they fought their way up to Mexico City here, and fought and won, basically. Yeah, there's something called operations as well. This document is designed to be used by players in conjunction with the campaign maps, which we just looked at. They will give you a listing of actions that took place near each number point on the map. So, number one there is Palo Alto, Taylor's campaign. So that would be here, right there, Palo Alto. Okay, so they tell you 72 turns, man. This is Taylor's American army is returning from a resupply expedition to Point Isabel, heading back to Fort Texas on the Rio Grande. Arista's Mexican army has taken up a blocking position at Palo Alto. The first battle of the Mexican-American War is about to begin. And they have the cavalry attack at Palo Alto. Cavalry attack, 12 turns. That looks doable. The Mexican cavalry floundered through the Resca and then thundered down to the American flank, aiming for the wagon train. The flank was held by the 5th and 3rd U.S. Infantry, plus a company of Texas Rangers. Okay, some dragoons. Yeah, there's going to be a different kind of forces in this game, different kind of fighting, different kind of tactics involved. Wow, 310 turns. Okay. The American armies returned to Fort Texas on the Rio Grande from the supply expedition to the Point Isabel. Having failed to intercept the Americans on the way to Point Isabel, the Mexican army under General Uriste is ready to resist their return to the border. So you probably will have played the whole campaign here. Then you have Pescado de la Palma. After the American victory withdrew to the Pescado de la Palma, an old riverbed. The Americans pursued, starting at dawn. So there was a battle there. 36 turns. Looks doable. And then there was a battle at Monterrey. Wow, look at that. Some pretty big stuff. They divided that into different... The Buena Vista. And here's some other actions as well. So, cavalry raid at Point Isabel. So this is about an attack on a supply base. Cavalry, Mexican cavalry. Last ditch, the Battle of Point Isabel. So this is a hypothetical battle. These are all hypothetical. And Battle of Matamoros. So they have different takes of what if something else had happened. Scott campaign, that's the one going from Mexico City. So they had some big battles there. 48 turns there. This one here, 14 turns. Contreras. The Battle of Contreras. It's just taken us 17 minutes. After a cold, wet night, the Mexican forces arise to find not only that their president has withdrawn from his supporting position, but they have been surrounded by the American forces and are under attack. This proved to be too much for the Army of the North, which disintegrated shortly after the Americans opened fire. Okay. Different battles there. Churubusco. So they go into detail about these different engagements. Chapultepec and some other actions. And then they have Doniphan battles, not tied to a campaign map. Okay. Some historical battles there. Battle of Sacramento. Texas War of Independence. There's a bunch covering that. Many historical, actually. Some hypothetical. So they have the document covering all that. We'll go through that. I'm going to try and pick something to play in this game. It's a very interesting game. Campaign maps, yeah. Another thing that is new in this is the optional rules. They're slightly different than what we're used to from the other games. So they do have different ways to play the game. Like we know, you can play it in different kinds of mode, manual, defensive, fire, stuff. But they have some new ones here, like rifle fire effects. So to have a special fire result applied to fire from American units equipped with rifles. This rule is based on the higher accuracy of rifles and the inclination of American units to specifically target British leaders. Okay, so this could be something specific for the war of the war when overthrowing the colonial rule there of the British and the French and stuff. They also have something called Cornwallis Cannon. To enable this ability to fire cannon to be added to the melee. This rule is motivated by the occurrence in the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, where Cornwallis ordered his cannon to fire on a melee between his forces and the Americans. When this rule is in effect, the fire from one cannon unit can be added to an existing melee, but the cannon must be able to fire on the defending hex, and the melee is automatically resolved when a cannon fire is added. Half of the fire value of the cannon is added to the melee attack. Strength of both sides in the melee, and therefore effects of both sides. Yeah, so different kinds. I would imagine these are the default rules since they're ticked in. That's what they look like when you sort of install the game. There won't be a default button you can press like they have in all the other titles. So this is probably what they would want you to use for the American-Mexican War there. Mexico-American War, sorry. So, yeah. Another cool thing is the user manual. This actually looks like it's been updated. So, it's only 36 pages, which is a relief. from many of the manuals these days. They're like the past campaigns and stuff. There's like 200 and something pages. It's quite extensive. But this game is kind of more. It's more basic, and it's sort of comprehensive. Uh, there are a few things you need to keep track of. When doing this, when playing this game, I noticed they also have a tactics here. You can read about what you should keep in mind since this era of warfare. But if we go through it real fast here, so you will have forces they have the turn versus phases. You could play it. There's two modes in this, not three as in Napoleonic and some of the others. It's two actually. In the default turn-based mode, each player moves, fires, and melees using units under its control. There are only a few restrictions on this. So after firing, a unit cannot move for the remainder of the turn, but they can melee. After meleeing, a unit cannot move or fire for the remaining of the turn. So, and they have this phased. If you prefer that, I'm not sure. This would be, I would probably use this more in the Napoleonic or 7-Year War, and even maybe in the 30 Years War. This would probably be more accurate, but maybe not so much in this. But still, I like this. It's very time consuming, but I do like to play it like this. So they have different, you have different formations and stuff. So it's linear warfare basically. You don't have any you do have skirmish units, but only a few troops are sort of regarded as light forces, and they can sort of deploy in a sort of a in an expanded formation, or what's it called? It was called something. Where is that? It's called something. What was it called? Formations here. So they have. It doesn't say here. I think it says somewhere else. I think it says in later on in the tactics, but they could deploy sort of they won't be as tightly as in formation. They will be more sort of spread out, and they could take cover, use cover and stuff, and they wouldn't take as many casualties when they're advancing, and it would be sort of as like a screening unit. But it's only a few units that can actually do that. But mostly it's linear. You move up, you form a line, and you start firing volleys and stuff. So they have engineer units. Column movement in this game is purely for maneuverability, move units fast. You don't commit forces to melee and stuff in column. It's just basically for enhancing your movements. Then they have sort of, this stuff that is basically the same for all the games. They have emplacement artillery. And they have fire modifiers. So this is good to keep track of when you are actually playing the game. What you do get bonus for and not. So if you have moved, you should usually not fire unless you're forced to, because you will get a sort of a great penalty for that, because your forces are still not really in position. So units which have not moved during their turn get a defensive benefit from fence and stone. That's kind of new as well. So if you have a unit lined up and there's like a stone wall or a fence, and they haven't moved, they will get a defense benefit from that, because they're sort of crouching down, taking cover. All units get a defensive benefits when behind an embankment, so they always give you or breastworks. The actual benefit of determination by parameter data. Yeah, you have to look that up. So units may get a defensive benefit from the terrain and the hex they are in. So you can get that. Target unit receives a defense benefit when it is a higher elevation. A cavalry unit which is mounted or in the act of dismounting. So the fire modifier when fired upon. Yeah, so we're getting to cavalry later on. Cavalry is not your Napoleonic cavalry and stuff like that. Cavalry here, you can't even charge in this game. There's not an option to charge with the cavalry. You just basically commit into melee. And you got to be careful with that, because cavalry wasn't really meant for, maybe cavalry to do with cavalry, sure, but fighting infantry and stuff. So they're on horseback. They're sort of dragoons. You know, they fire their rifles and stuff from horseback. And if they want to like have a good, solid, aimed, concentrated volley, they would dismount and form a line and fire at the enemy. And then you also get a modifier, because you will have some guys will have to be horse handlers to take care of the horses as the others fire, and you will get reduction in firepower basically. So if you're in the act, so it will usually take a turn to dismount as well. You will see that later on when we play the game. Dismounting, it's say dismounting, and then you will have a penalty for that if you get fired upon, or if you fire yourself. A unit in column formation, or one that is fired upon by a firing unit that is not facing its subject to an, yeah, this is new here. Enfilade, enfilade fire modifier. There, this is sort of a new thing. That basically means if your unit is taking fire from somewhere that they don't know where the fire is coming from, they will get like a negative applier on them, because they are sort of, I guess they would be nervous and kind of under shock, you know, where this fire is coming from, and they won't be as an effective unit. So a firing unit that has a medium fatigue, and then you have the fatigue. If you have a medium fatigue, you get subtracted 10% from your firepower. If you have high fatigue, you have 20, and a unit with the maximum fatigue has a 40 subtracted to the fire value. So if the firing unit, infantry, cavalry, and the quality fire modifier optional rule is in effect, and the 10% is added to the fire value if it has a quality A or B. Yeah, so this is an optional rule, quality fire modifier. I'm not sure it's actually default. It is, no. Yeah, it is. Okay, so it's a default. Disrupted units fire half effectiveness. Losses against units in an extended formation are reduced by 10%. Fire values against supply records are doubled. Artillery fire values are based on the number of guns, times 50. All right. So cavalry, yeah. Dismounted cavalry fires, this is what I said before, 3/4 effectiveness due to they have horse holders and stuff. And it says mounted fire cavalry capability. If weapon being carried by cavalry identifies the weapon as having mounted fire capability, then mounted cavalry can fire while mounted, although at half effectiveness. So cavalry is sneaky in this. You need to really, think hard what to do with your cavalry. Probably best to do screening and sort of, charge up and capture an objective, dismount and hold it, or the classic get behind and do some sort of attacks from the rear and stuff. And then they have something about fire casualties here. They have offensive fire modifiers, so units which fire offensive fire after movement in the same turn do it half effectively. Yeah, so this is something you have to keep in mind. Artillery batteries that have moved in the same turn cannot fire. Units which are low on ammo cannot fire at all. Or in the first offensive fire phase, after changing formation from mounted to dismounted, cavalry is considered dismounting and cannot fire. Okay, so they can't even fire there. Okay. Units which do not fire offensive fire receive a 10% bonus to the melee strength. Yeah, so you do have that still, 10%. If you don't fire and just attack, that would be like your men are charging in and they're firing their guns at the same time. You get a bonus for that. And meleeing is nothing new, basically. They have modifiers for that as well. So each defending artillery gun counts as a routed and isolated units have their defending strength divided by 4. Units which have already defended in melee and have retreated into a hex that is then attacked in melee have their defending strength divided by 2. I guess you will need to have multiple. Maybe it's sort of standard here. Flank morale. Okay. Yeah. Supply wagons, modifiers applied to the melee strength. If no attacking units have fired in the turn or preceding offensive fire phase, then 10 is added, yeah. If the attacking units have a leader, you get 10. If the defending units have a leader, they get 10. If the defending units are attacked by a non-leader from an hex side they are not facing, then 20% is added to attacker's strength. So this is, you get a bonus for flanks and rear attacks. The largest hex side modifier of all the hex sides the attackers are attacking through is applied to the attacking strength. Okay. And you have elevations play a role as well. If all the attacking units are mounted cavalry in a clear hex, attacking a clear hex, then 10% is added to its attacking strength. So that would be good if you caught some infantry in the open, clear terrain, and you would swing around and engage them in melee from the back. You would have some pretty good odds stacked against you there. So in that sense, cavalry is pretty good. Fatigue modifiers. So units in extended formation without bayonets melee at a quarter effectiveness. So this is this extended formation. This is what the sort of skirmish. It's actually skirmish formation, and this one here is very important. Units with small arms weapons have 50% added to their melee strength. That's pretty good. So small arms, if you have units with small arms and stuff, pistols and stuff, they are really good in melee. So, and they have special melee effects. When units in extended formation, units without bayonets are attacked by normal units. Those not in extended formation are having bayonets, and the defending units lose the melee, then the defending losses are halved. Okay, this reflects the fact that such units would not stand and fight against an attack such as this and would fall back without contesting the attack. All right. Melee resolution. So, and command is basically the same. You got to keep track of your commanders and command radius and stuff. Detached units. So a unit is considered to detach when it's outside the command radius of the immediate superior officer, normally a brigade commander. The leader's detached status is irrelevant for the determining things, thus allowing brigades to be assigned to guard remote locations away from the main army, but still be fully functional command. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Morale. Here we have this enfilade. Very hard word to pronounce that. Enfilade morale effects. If the unit has been fired upon, then 2 is subtracted from the morale. Note that units in line formation do not suffer this effect if the unit is protected by an embankment or stone wall hex side, unless the fire comes from a higher elevation. So that's something to be taken in consideration in this. And fatigue. Supply, same. You need to have your wagon within 5 hexes. Isolated units, of course, is bad. Combat results, they have weather as well. And then they go on in this campaign that we talked about. So it's nothing really new. And IP and stuff. One interesting is, as I went from the start here, is the tactics. Where is it? The tactics here is pretty good. It's a good read if you want to know how the game works and mechanics and stuff. So this section contains information that the player may find helpful in playing the game. So this is very important right here. It says, don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. There's a bonus given to the first time a unit fires in the battle. This reflects the fact that weapons of the period tended to foul after being fired several times, and that the first few firings of the weapon were therefore more effective. You should wait until your enemy is within short range to take the most advantage of this effect. Sounds pretty important. And here we have, keep in mind that cavalry can fight dismounted. The cavalry in this game represents dragoon units. These carried guns and could dismount and fight on foot. Since there's not a lot of cavalry in any battle, you cannot use your cavalry the same way you would in Napoleonic battles. In general, cavalry charges will only be effective against routed or other vulnerable units. Otherwise, you should use your cavalry for scouting and as advanced units. For example, at Princeton, the British cavalry was used to ride ahead and hold an important position. Use the extended formation to improve the defense ability of your units. Extended formation represents the open order formation used by skirmishers, as opposed to the shoulder-to-shoulder formation used by the units in line. Light units and militia can use this formation to improve their ability to withstand the fire and charges of units in line while retreating their own firepower, or retaining their own firepower. Okay. Artillery will not have a significant effect on the battle. In each battle, you will not have a great amount of artillery to use. Okay. Remember that the standard unit in the game is the company. In games where the regiment is the standard unit, the column formation actually represents the relatively location of the individual companies, each of which is deployed in line. Therefore, remember that your companies will always fight in line formation, and that their relative position to each other will determine the formation of their regiment. Okay, so that's important. And as the American player, you should be very aware of the difference in quality between you and your regular forces and the militia. Yeah, lots to take in there, man. But all in all, I find it more basic. And what you need to keep in mind are those modifiers and stuff that are probably going to be like really important in this game. Wow, that was a lot of talking. Yeah, so this is what the game looks like, man. We could fire something up. So, for instance, yeah, getting started was pretty fun. It was a small scenario based of one of the historical actions in the game, but together to allow players to get a feel of the system and learn the basics. It's kind of a big battle. We can fire it up. Now I can't remember who's who, but we'll just do manual on both sides. So there's some cool ambient noises of battle, guns firing and stuff. So 3D is not looking too shabby. It's pretty good in this game. I like it. Graphics are actually in par with the Civil War. It looks like they're using the same sort of template for this. 2D is good as well. I do like these alternate icons they have for this. So here we can go over. Look at this battle. It's quite big for being getting started one. So there's lots going on here that you can learn. So this is a particular fight. The Americans are attacking this defensive position here, and the Mexicans have sort of dug in here. So here you have guns, horse artillery, 6-pounders. Look at the ranges, man. 36. Yeah, right off the bat, the toolbar is old, man. I wonder if you can actually make it a little bit bigger. It's very limited, this game. Yeah, I don't think it can make it bigger. So they will definitely add some enhancements to this game. It feels kind of old. And these symbols here are really old as well. So that is your fire, new battle, old battle, save game, next turn. This is rotating your unit. This is changing formation. This is one is for the extended line. Let's see what I got here. So these guys are moving in column at the moment. They don't have a movement icon as well. If I would click this force here, I can't see how far they can go, which they do have visibilities, but they don't have, they have the jump map. It's kind of small in this one. The next stack, fixed units, spotted. So highlight organization. So these guys look pretty spread out. This guy here is in charge, but he has some forces way over here. Don't know why they are sort of spread out. We have some forces down here. They belong to that unit as well. 8th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade. Yeah. And they are actually running with the 5th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade. So, sort of mixed up there. Sort of spread out a bit. And they have lots of forces here. Major General Scott. So K is your command radius. So if I were to select this commander here, that would be his command radius. So they are within command. Major Montgomery there. Captain Smith. He has no... I don't think he has... No, so he is just a captain in there. He will add bonuses to you as you... use him. You wouldn't maybe want to throw in your major to get killed. Here you have Major Bonneville. He usually is a commander with the artillery as well. We have this guy here. He's in charge here. We have wagons. We have a force moving up here. So basically, you are making an assault. So these guys are ready to go in. See, there's only like 40 men. 30, 32. So very small units moving here. Harper's muskets. So range 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got to imagine the scale in this game. They can fire quite far. So ranges are... So these guys have range 8. Whole rifles. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They can fire all the way up here, man. I wonder if there is like a... range highlight, fixed, spotted, low, moved, disrupted, detached, isolated, supply wagons, boats, commanded units. Okay, so battalion colors, that's good. You can have battalion colors, you know who belongs to what. I would imagine that unit would be detached, but he's not. He might be under command of somebody else. This guy here, Major, no. There's only one leader here. This guy. He doesn't have a command radius. But they're all in command, apparently. I don't know if this guy's in charge, no. So command is somewhat confusing. This guy has a command radius. The Major. But these guys don't have any leader there, so they have this Major, but he doesn't have a command radius, so don't really know how that is working out there. Colonel, yes, okay, so he might be the commanding officer there. They are within command range of him, most of the forces, anyways. You have another Major there. So command is of course important. We have a Major down there. Yeah, so different things to keep track of, man. And it's kind of a deadly game. So these guys are in good positions here. They are behind a stone wall. They're in line formation. They have range of 4 with their rifles. They have a bonus to their defense, to their quality, since they are within the leader and they are behind that wall. That gives them a bonus as well. Another but generally the quality is pretty bad. These guys have quality C. These guys have B. So these are your sort of skirmish units, these guys. So pretty cool. We can have a look at some other battles. They have some really big ones, like this one here. This one takes the whole... The American armies returned to Fort Texas on the Rio Grande on a supply expedition to the Point Isabel. Having failed to intercept the Americans on the way to Point Isabel, the Mexican army on General Arista is ready to resist their return onto the border. So this is a huge battle here. 310 turns, and you get to play like the whole thing here. So you have... Let's have a look at the jump map. So here are the American forces coming down. You have General Taylor there. He's the main man. He's coming down with his whole army. And so the Mexicans are forming up a sort of defense here. This would be the battle where it took place. And you have to sort of do all that from scratch, basically. It's pretty cool. And they have the this Fort Texas. And by the looks of it, it's under siege with guns and stuff. And I think some Mexicans here are ready to go for the attack, probably. Quality E, man. Ooh, it's gonna be a tough fight. These guys are what, A, quality A and stuff. So, and they're in behind these guns and stuff. That's gonna be a tough fight. They don't even have artillery support here, man. But they do have artillery on the other side, it seemed. Like here. Here are some guns. What's the range of these? 36. So they're probably within range to bombard the forts. Well, not those guns. They look like way too far off. We have something down here. Fort Paredes down here. Okay. Yeah. Interesting stuff. There's also there's also music in this game. Pretty cool music, actually. Different songs. If you can hear it. Pretty cool. Different songs. So that would maybe something to have in the background to get in the mood and stuff. Yeah, what else to take notice of this game? We're going to do something, man. If you guys know anything that I should try out, I'd be kind of intrigued to do something from the Texas War of Independence. But also something from the main event would be fun. But some of these battles are pretty big, man. Like this one here is a hypothetical. Maybe it looks like the hypothetical ones could be sort of smaller. This one here looks pretty okay. 36 turns. There'll be some time to do that, though. But it could be fun to try something. So if you have any requests, please let me know. I'm just going to scroll through here. You can see there's lots of different battles here, man. The Alamo. That's sort of a famous. Let's open that up. Yeah, so here's the mission Santa de Valero, the Alamo. So they're holding them on. The Mexicans are attacking them relentlessly. Pretty cool. Yeah, so they're coming in here. So I think they have some infantry here, but the Mexicans do have quite a lot of cavalry as well. I've seen in some scenarios. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here, man. I don't know. I'll be talking for hours, it seems. But this is next on the list, man. The Mexican-American War looks pretty interesting, and we're gonna be duking it out in this, and you're gonna be seeing some of the difference, man, in fighting and how it actually works. So it's going to be a learning experience for me as well. So this Let's Play is probably going to be quite extensive once I choose a battle and start digging into it. We're going to be looking at tactics and stuff. There's probably lots to read about this as well, especially the guns and stuff. And even maybe it's, how they actually fought. It probably was kind of primitive, but there are some things that you need to keep track of, I would imagine. So hope you guys are going to be enjoying it, man. I am for sure, and then it probably will get me more and more into the to this series, man. They've got some good titles here. They have the 1776, the French and Indian War, and the War of 1812. So this would be right up to the 7-Year War as well, as that kicked off in Europe. It's pretty cool stuff there. Yeah, look at this. Stuff I'm not very familiar with, but would be fun to get into. But this seems like a good title to start off with. Yeah, I'm going to end it here, man. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope you guys are going to be enjoying this. And I'll see you in the Let's Play of this great title. So have a good one, and I'll see you later.